Hey cats, it's EDDBUD here. Today I'm revisiting a shoe that's been part of Nike's running lineup for years now. The Nike Air Zoom Tempo Next Percent, or the Tempo as they now call it. No one really seems to talk about this shoe all that much, but I do see it on quite a few people's feet still, somewhat overshadowed perhaps by the Vaporfly and the ALPHAFLY models. What has it got to offer in 2023? Let's check it out. Thanks for tuning in, people. I hope you're enjoying the content on the channel recently. If you've yet to do so, help us out by hitting that subscribe button and clicking the bell for notifications. Also give this video a thumbs up like, that really helps out, as well as sharing it with your running buddies. Danke schön. So looking at the Tempo Next Percent here from Nike, it's a shoe I picked up on release. I really enjoyed it. Some of you didn't, but it's really weird. It's still for sale on Nike's website. They still keep putting out new colorways of it. £189 here in the UK is a hefty price. Is it a lower cost version of the ALPHAFLY? Still a super shoe, but a more budget one? Or is it something altogether different? Let's revisit this one and see if we can figure out exactly what the Tempo Next Percent is. On the face of it, if you compare this shoe up against the ALPHAFLY Next Percent 2, which is the other model that Nike currently actually offer, which has those Air Zoom pods in the forefoot and a mainly Zoom X midsole here, the only bit that really separates it from the ALPHAFLY is that React foam in the heel. I recently saw a cut down video of this shoe, and actually there's quite a lot of Zoom X. There's not all that much React here when you get to see actually inside the shoe. I was quite surprised actually to see how much of the actual midsole is made up of that softer Zoom X P-Bax foam. Aside from the foam and those air units, of course, we have some type of plate in this shoe, the same as the ALPHAFLY Next Percent 2, although the one that we do get in this shoe is a nylon plate. Of course, we get a carbon plate in the ALPHAFLY Next Percent 2. I have cleaned up my pair. As you can see, they look almost brand new once again. Quite a lot of rubber on the outsole of the Tempo Next Percent. It kind of spreads back into the rear section of the shoe. Not quite so much of it here in the ALPHAFLY Next Percent 2. And in the current version of the ALPHAFLY, they've actually limited the rubber down. It's perforated now. There's a big slab of it here in the Tempo Next Percent. The upper materials are quite a bit more coarse here in the Tempo Next Percent and a lot smoother in the ALPHAFLY Next Percent 2. Very similar heel construction though in both shoes. They are two models that are actually quite hard to get on, so you will need to bring your shoehorn. Obviously the elephant in the room between these two shoes is that £100 price difference. £290 for the ALPHAFLY Next Percent 2, at least the latest model, and £190 for the Tempo Next Percent. I think they've still got this available in about 3 different colorways on Nike's UK site, so clearly Nike still see it as a viable option even in 2023. I think you can even pick it up in some Sports Direct outlets here in the UK. You can literally drive down the road and buy it in a store. How many shoes can you say that about these days? So if we dig a little deeper, can we figure out where that £100 comes in? What's the real difference between these two shoes? I have to start with saying that I don't think that the ALPHAFLY Next Percent 2 is worth the retail price. It's quite frankly ridiculous. It's almost scandalous really for a load of foam and some upper materials and a bit of rubber. That's just my 2 cents though, and it's probably why Nike never send me any shoes to review. The Tempo Next Percent in my UK size 11, US size 12, comes in at about 308 grams, which is 10.9 ounces. The ALPHAFLY Next Percent 2, in the same size, comes in at 278 grams, or 9.8 ounces. So the ALPHAFLY is about an ounce lighter on foot. There's a wider heel base in the ALPHAFLY in terms of surface area, and of course it's compiled of that Zoom X foam only. If you do measure that Zoom X foam with the Sure A durometer, so that measures softness, it comes in at about 20. We do have some of that foam in the forefoot and midfoot section of the Tempo Next Percent, so it's about the same measurement, and I get about a 33 measurement in the React foam that's in the heel. So yeah, you're getting a slightly softer ride, but don't forget you got a carbon plate in this thing, so that probably negates a little bit of that softness. In fact, you might actually benefit from having that sort of firmer, more sort of dense React material here in the heel of the Tempo Next Percent. Very similar surface areas in the widest point of the forefoot in both of these shoes, but when you're talking about the actual underfoot feel of both of these, they are a little bit more aggressive. Don't forget, you've got those Air Zoom pods in the forefoot. They are quite tough, they're more responsive, so don't expect a super soft ride in either of these shoes. Yes, supposedly they give you a bit more energy return, but it's going to make the ride that bit firmer. On foot, actually, the uppers of these shoes are very similar. You have a really close profile. They're quite sort of foot hugging, I suppose, and that's something I quite enjoy. Now, the other thing that I see people talking about in terms of these two shoes is the stack height. I think this one's been kind of unfairly treated, really. When these were first released, people were moaning about the heel stack, saying that it was an illegal shoe and no one would be racing in it. Well, I have to say, measuring both of these in terms of the heel stack, they come in at practically the same for my UK size 11. So I'm not entirely sure where somebody perhaps posted the heel stack somewhere and then it just went on from there and people reposted that data, but these shoes have the same heel stack. So make of that what you will. I measure about a 10mm drop from heel to toe in the Tempo Next Percent. I'm pretty sure I've got about 6mm of drop in the ALPHAFLY Next Percent too. It's nowhere near the 8mm that Nike states. This one certainly feels a little bit more firm in the forefoot. It's a touch less soft. That's probably down to the fact there's a little bit less foam here above those air units, and probably down to that very thick rubber on the outsole. We got that asymmetrical lacing in both of the uppers of the shoes, and of course the classic pull tabs. So is one better than the other? Where should you go for one over the other? I personally think these two shoes serve a slightly different purpose, but not for training or racing. I think they're for different people. Now, strangely, despite it being a slightly heavier model, I think the Tempo Next Percent is actually much better for pacey running. Not really a shoe that I've ever wanted to run slowly in. Every time I've put it on, it just makes you go at it like a bull at a gate. It feels like it's tuned for having a little bit more stability in the heel, rather than having the very thick application of Zoom X that we get in the ALPHAFLY that seems like it's to protect you from the impact of the pavement over a marathon. I think this shoe's probably best for like a half marathon, where you're going to go all out, all the way. Obviously, you're probably not going to do that in a marathon. I think people have been avoiding this one almost because they just don't see it on foot as much, perhaps. There's not the hype surrounding this shoe. I feel it's kind of been unfairly treated, really. I think it's probably one of Nike's best models over the last few years. People have seen this shoe on foot of some of the greatest athletes, maybe the greatest runner there's ever been, Kipchoge. As such, they see this one and they think this is the pinnacle of it all, but the Tempo Next Percent actually may be better for some people. Perhaps it's the lack of advertising, maybe, for that Tempo model. It's clearly one that must sell pretty well, though, for Nike to continue making all these new colorways of it. It can't be a complete dud or anything. I mean, they've been manufacturing it since October 2020. There's been like colorway after colorway of this shoe, so it must be reasonably successful for them to do that. You even had those weird and wonderful off-white versions of the shoe with the weird zip ties and bizarre rubbery spikes on the bottom of the outsole. Those came out in like July 2021. So why are we still being offered the same model with no iteration? You know, 2.5 years later, nothing's changed. Nike still seem to sell it. There's not even been a hint of an update to this one. So all this business about the Tempo Next Percent being illegal, perhaps that's damaged its sort of sales or something. Perhaps it's the fact that it launched around that sort of COVID period and maybe the initial sales weren't quite what Nike wanted, so they've left it in the lineup. Who knows? But if it's one you haven't tried out, I suggest you do. Yes, it's quite a loud shoe, but is that really the end of the world? No. If it works well for you, don't worry about it. And durability, as you can see here, is insanely good. Nowhere whatsoever back there. I did use Solar where people were measuring like the midsole from the outside. You can't really tell if you've worn any of the New Balance models, for example, some of the Asics ones. If you measure it from the outside, you're never going to get a good measurement. The foam kind of cups up and around the heel. Perhaps that's what happened, I don't know. But in my size anyway, same heel drop as the ALPHAFLY Next Percent 2. So if you're worried about it being illegal, just don't. I think this is still probably the king of the marathon shoes, the same kind of intent as the Tempo Next Percent, but a lot more squash here in the heel. It's going to perhaps save you come mile 20. So kind of revisiting this shoe, really, it's definitely one that I think you should still check out. Don't be put off by the fact it's that bit heavier than the ALPHAFLY or the Vaporfly. It's still worthy of your attention, even now. I mean, come October, that'll be like 3 years since it first launched. Have you tested these two shoes out? What do you make of my observations? Let us know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments. A quick musical interlude for you. Go and check out 2 of the new tracks from Miles Kane. He's got a brand new album coming out soon called One Man Band. The 2 tracks to check out are Troubled Sun and Baggio. Fantastic guitar work here from Miles Kane. It's always been one of my favourites, really. Troubled Sun's got some real nice pace about it, some really gritty guitars. Real urgency, actually, about the track. It really feels like he's connected with the music that he's writing this time around. But Baggio is the one for me. I always remember watching Roberto Baggio playing football, always an inspiring character on the pitch, and Miles Kane writes about that. He was obviously watching him at some point and he kind of felt like Baggio was lifting him up, raising his spirits, kind of inspiring him to get out there and perform. Some really nice arrangements on Baggio, some really interesting use of guitar as well. Go and check these out. If this is a sign of what's going to be on the new Miles Kane album, then we're in for a real stonker. One Man Band by Miles Kane. Thanks for tuning in, people. My stomach's rumbling. I think I might go for a Chinese. Hit that subscribe button and click the bell for notifications. But give this video a thumbs up like, it really helps out, and share it with your running buddies. My name's EDDBUD, and I'll be seeing you.